Hey everyone, Ben Coomber Radio, episode number 266. I've got Big Tom, Big T Bainbridge sitting here with me today. We're going to answer some of your questions. I have just come back from a holiday in Greece. Not many of you will know that because I didn't really advertise it on social media. But what a place. Do you know what? Finding a holiday to go to Greece was really hard because apparently, I might be wrong, I think there's about 6,000 islands. Either way, there's thousands of islands. And actually finding a place to go was really hard. So I made the logical decision of posting it on Facebook and saying, has anyone been to Greece? Where have you been? And like 50 people were like, I've been here, I've been here, I've been here. I was like, shit, that just did not help at all. But wow, is the food in Greece amazing. We went to Rhodes. We got a really awesome deal. £400 for a half board, 5-star, beautiful place. And then we just hired a car and like drove around, found amazing beaches, visited monasteries, went to a butterfly thing in the mountain. Like amazing. But I'm tanned and it rarely happens. And Tom will probably agree and probably feel... I'm not sure if it's jealousy because Tom lives in the north and he'll see 3 days of sunshine a year. I don't think I've ever seen Tom with a suntan ever.
No, I'm like the whitest man alive. But yeah, I'm looking out now at like the slightly grey, hazy fog of the north, and it just feels like home. It's weird. If I ever go on holiday and see sun, it takes me like 3 days to remember what that is.
If there was sun in the gym, you'd be really tanned.
Probably, yeah, probably. I have to say. But
Would
no,
you train like a CrossFitter then and have your shirt off?
No, I can't get away with it. I used to train in a CrossFit gym and I took my top off once and it just feels weird. Like I'm like, oh no, I'm that guy now. I can't do this. Like I'd rather just suffer in a t-shirt for the sake of pride.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Tom and I have been very busy behind the scenes trying to put together the finishing touches of our Foundation Academy. Our new Foundation Academy launches in August, and we've now written a big shiny book that is nearly finished. We've animated the course. We've done loads of incredible things. It's not quite ready to see on the website yet. I'm basically just getting your juices flowing. So if you want to do a course in the foundations of nutrition covering a whole load of stuff, then keep an eye out for August because we will be starting the program where myself teaches and delivers and Tom does a lot of the support work and stuff. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled. But I suppose we should get into some people's questions.
I suppose we should. We're going to try and not only answer one question this episode because we've got a pretty poor track record so far.
We have, yeah. But so to be fair, they've been good rambles.
Yeah, let's see if we can get at least 2 done.
Yeah, no, I'm confident we'll do all 3.
Cool. So, first one. Hi Ben. First of all, huge fan of the show. Love the straight talking, no BS style, and always like to hear people challenging something if they don't think it's right, even if it may seem unpopular. I'm writing in as I need some advice on nutrition. I'm an S&C coach and a guy who turns his hand to any sport and challenge that fits with my lifestyle. As I've changed jobs, meaning I have to travel frequently, I've moved from Olympic weightlifting to triathlon. Big shift, I know. I'm a big guy, 6'7", 127 kilos, and this is where my issue lies. I've used macro counting previously for my weightlifting, and it worked for a while. I saw improvements with my performance, gained a bit of weight, 107 to 125 kilos. However, it wasn't all good weight, and I was eating monstrous amounts of food. Alarm 6 times a day and a duffel bag of food. After suffering some injuries and putting on more weight, I realised I was not enjoying the training the way I looked or the way I felt. So after looking at the athletes I worked with and realised it was only really developing half of my job title, I was strong but very unconditioned, I decided to lose weight and take up the challenge that would force me to do so, and something that I could fit around my schedule without a guaranteed gym. Since starting, I've lost 9 kilos, all through a hypocaloric diet. Nothing major, I haven't starved myself, but I have noticed I've lost some muscle mass, which was expected. What I want to ask is what kind of macros would you recommend for someone of my size? I've read around and looked at the recommended macro gram per kilogram of body weight, but it's a huge amount of food. Looking at the papers, there are very few, if any, that look transferable to my population, a super heavyweight with a big frame. I've tried the masses of food and following suggested macros, but budget fitting in the food, both time and actually into my stomach, just hasn't seemed to work. And I'm afraid if I do, I'll see the weight come back on quickly, whilst also trying to lose some body fat. Is there any recommendations you can give? Lost is a pool of information and just need some guidance. Many thanks, and thank you for your podcast. Striving to be more awesome, Joe.
So, firstly, I'm definitely jealous at how quickly you can put on muscle mass. It sounds like you are quite, you're someone that has good genetics. You train, whether, intelligently, you're putting on good mass, you put on some fat with that. The thing is, what we haven't got here is we haven't got any tangible information in terms of I did this and I ate 4,000 calories or 5,000. I did this macronutrient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive in from the top on a bird's eye view. One of the things that we have to appreciate is the science that we generally tend to work towards with building someone's calorie and macronutrient requirement is based largely on your weight. And then we will look at potentially lean body mass depending on that person. So if I took someone off the street, the chances are I'm going to calculate their calorie intake to their body mass that presents. If someone's quite athletic, I might work towards their lean body mass because they're already quite lean. Either way, you're going to find a percentage deficit that equals weight loss and in your case maintains performance. So traditionally, usually, if you are in a performance phase of training, you'll want to diet pretty slowly. Otherwise, you're going to inhibit your potential performance. Like, I don't want to put someone on a 15% calorie deficit when they're trying to compete sprint distance triathlon. If ideally, I don't want them to diet at all. But if they do want to diet, that diet needs to be really moderate, like 5, maybe 8% tops in terms of a calorie deficit. Otherwise, you're going to come into difficulties recovering. Now, genetics is going to play a component there because definitely some people just recover better. It sounds like, if I'm honest, you're a bit of an athlete and it sounds like you would recover better than some people. Ultimately, the science of calories and macronutrients is fairly well set. If you flick open the pages of a sports nutrition textbook, you're going to see pretty high carbohydrate intakes, especially for someone of your training discipline of triathlon. So you might be having 45, 50, 55% carbohydrate intake, around 20-25% protein and the rest fat. Now you obviously need to work out what the volume of training you're doing. You've got your BMR, then you've got the training that's on top of that, and then you've got your total daily movement, the energy that you do from walking and all that kind of stuff. So really, the short and tall of it is that you're going to have to eat a lot because you're a big dude. You've got to eat a certain amount to maintain your body weight. And then you've just got to appropriately calculate a calorie deficit into that on top. So it kind of sounds like you've got 60-70% close with your approach to where you need to be, and you just haven't quite really understood some of the nuances of tracking your body weight with calorie and macronutrients to actually get the outcome that you've got. When you first did it, you said you put on a lot of body fat, which kind of sounded like you went to a bit of an old school bodybuilding approach where you were eating 6 times a day, huge amounts of food, put on as much muscle mass as possible, and don't worry about putting on some body fat. But now you're trying to draw a finer line on that, and really, we if you were my client, I would know what to do with you. I'd calculate your need, and then I'd kind of subtract a little bit for you to lose body fat.
Yeah, I mean, I ran the numbers on this guy just before we came on, and his maintenance is somewhere in the region of at least 3,650 calories, which to maintain, like, that's a shit ton of food. And I calculated that off, like, moderate activity. I don't know what this guy does. Like, I don't know how active he is in his job. It depends, because a strength and conditioning coach, you may be running around all the time, you may be working with clients, or you may be the kind of coach that stands and watches the clients work. So it's difficult to tell, but that's a lot of food. And I mean, if this guy's also doing triathlon, there's going to be some days where he needs to compensate for like significant cycling, significant runs. So I can appreciate where he's coming from just struggling to get the food in. I mean,
Thomas,
100.
let me stop you there.
Yeah.
I have no problem eating 3,600 calories.
Oh, absolutely. But that's maintenance. So say this guy then goes and does a 10-mile run, that's going to bump up to 4,500 calories plus.
Very true.
So if someone's got a smaller appetite, which, although this guy's 6'7", you don't know what his appetite's like it can be a struggle. Like eating 4,500 calories is a part-time job.
Yeah, it is.
But as you say, it's something where I'd recommend, Joe, that you look at more nutrient-dense foods if you are, like more calorie-dense foods if you are struggling to get the calories in. Because in order to maintain performance, as Ben says, you really don't need to be looking at a significant, like a big calorie deficit. You said that you gained a lot of performance. I mean, going from 107 to 125 kilos, you're going to gain some strength during that process if you're training. And I'd imagine, as Ben was saying, you're going to want to keep that going. So looking at a smaller deficit is going to mean that maybe you are going to have to look at non-traditional dieting foods. So the slightly fattier meats, slightly denser carbohydrates, like lots of white rice and things that are easy to pack in. They're cheap. I know you mentioned budget, so you don't need to be looking at the leanest meats and the most expensive fancy carbohydrates. It does become a case of, if you're an athlete, think of yourself as a machine and just think of getting the fuel in that you need.
I think Tom, you've highlighted a great point in that when we kind of are in diet or maintenance mode of our nutrition, which a lot of people are in for large amounts of the year, we obviously, and quite rightly so, focus our diet on nutrient-dense food. So let's just take a chicken salad, for example. Someone then says, right, I want to gain weight or I need to eat more. And they then look at the current framework that they have in place, which is the chicken salad, and go, right, I need to eat more chicken salad, which then is problematic. The thing that you want to do to that chicken salad to bump up the calories is start to add something like grated parmesan on top, or a rich olive oil dressing, or run some walnuts through it, or, you know, drink half a pint of whole milk with the salad. Like all these little tiny hacks that can add 200-300 calories on per meal to actually hit that target. And that's when people say to me, Ben, I can't eat enough to gain weight. I'm like, dude, I just don't see how that's possible. Just drink a pint of whole milk, or have half a bar of, you know, dark chocolate, or grab a handful of nuts. Like, there's so many calorie dense foods out there. It should be fairly easy, but you do have to switch your mindset in that you're just going to have to choose different foods. And it doesn't make it unhealthy, because we still want, you know, a chicken salad in there. We still want lots of nutrient dense foods, but just some other stuff's going to have to go on top.
Yeah, and it's as you mentioned as well, like, calorie dense foods don't necessarily have to be quote unquote junk. Like there are a lot of stereotypically healthy foods that contain a lot of calories per mouthful. It's just a case of finding them. I mean, during heavy training cycles, I will go through a kilo of peanut butter a week. Like it's an easy, cheap-ish way of just getting the calories in without feeling really full all the time. I mean, one of the parts of this question that kind of got highlighted to me as I was reading it was, what kind of macros would you recommend for someone of my size? The information doesn't seem transferable to my population. I think that's probably just because of the way that people think about these things. I mean, when you look at 4,000 calories to maintain, say, in someone's head that goes, shit, that's a lot of food. But I mean, this guy is 6'7" and 20 stone. Like, that is going to require a lot of food. So it's just a case of thinking, just because the numbers seem a lot, you need to bear in mind that they're still transferable to your population. It doesn't really matter if you're especially tall, if you're especially heavy. Like, the numbers are still pretty much the numbers. Sure, there's going to be, as you mentioned earlier, there's going to be genetic variances. So some people are going to have higher requirements, some people are going to have lower requirements than what any random calculator is going to spit out. But it's going to give you the ballpark, even if it does seem out of the ordinary, because in the kindest possible way, because I wish I was enormous, this guy is slightly out of the ordinary. Like, if you noticed a 6'7", 20 stone guy walking down the street, strength and conditioning coach, like, you'd notice.
For a start, he's going to have traps for days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the the duffel bag of food thing, I think that might just be something that you have to deal with.
I think this is where there's a great argument for liquid nutrition.
Yeah.
Making a massive litre of smoothie at the beginning of the day with whey protein, peanut butter, whole milk, all that kind of stuff, you can easily get 1,000 calories into a drink.
Easily, yeah. I mean, if you are, as he says, he's an S&C coach, so I'm assuming he's working from a gym or some other athletic environment. Like, he's not going to have cooking facilities. So meal prepping and taking meals with him, taking liquid nutrition with him, is just part and parcel of this kind of lifestyle that very athletic, larger individuals have. Like, you need to get that nutrition in somehow, in some way. And I'm not saying you have to eat 5 meals a day or anything like that, but if you need upwards of 3,500 calories and you're not going to be at home, you're either going to have to spend a lot of money or take that food with you. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. So I would just try to find a way to make it fit your lifestyle and make it fit your schedule and preferences. So it could be prepping 2-3 meals to take with you if you don't have the appetite that can hold a lot of food in one sitting. Or it could be, as Ben says, liquid nutrition. Blend up some whey with anything. There's all sorts of different shakes. You can find recipes online if you'd like to find some.
I think
just find a way to get in.
What we have kind of touched on here as well is our current, the way we do things currently as people, and we all do things differently. So, for example, one of the things that I sometimes struggle with as an individual when I go shopping is kind of thinking, especially if I'm trying to eat a lot of food, is literally thinking of what to eat, because naturally you want to have lots of variety in your diet. So from a planning perspective, what I'm poor at doing is I'm not poor at planning the time to make the food or buy the food or any of that. I'm poor at planning what food I'm going to buy and what kind of pattern I'm going to make those foods. So for example, I'll very easily walk into whatever supermarket and go, right, I'll get chicken, beef, rice, vegetables, whatever, and I'll start going around the supermarket in an automated way, and I'll get home and I'm like, shit, I haven't bought that. I've only got 2,500 calories roughly a day. I've only got 3 meals because I literally haven't planned around how my mind goes on autopilot. So when I was on holiday in Greece, I spent a little bit of time on my iPhone in one of my iPhone notes, writing down literally loads of meals that I like. And I just sat there with Lizzie and said, give me some of the foods you cook me. Tell me some of the foods I like. Tell me some different cuisines. And I just started to write down all these different breakfast options, lunch options. And, I've got a fridge full of food this week of all really nice food because I just spent half an hour spitballing loads of different stuff. And it forced me to sit back and say, right, this is one of my character flaws. This is how and why I go on autopilot. This is the fix that I need to implement. And, there's so much of that in our lifestyles. Like, we've all got, different ways of doing things. Like, Tom's got some things that he'll autopilot on, and actually now and again needs to stand back and go, no, okay, that's fine, but I need to make sure I do this first, because otherwise I'm going to end up with the same outcome. And, there was some hints in this question from Joe of like, oh, I do this and I do things that way. And it's just a reality check and planning to stand back and go, well, actually, this is what I need to do, because otherwise I'm not going to get the outcome that I want.
Definitely. I mean, what you've just said there about basically planning your meals out, that's something that me and my girlfriend implemented a few months ago now. And I think it's something that's completely changed the way that we eat, because we just sit there for, as you say, it's 15 minutes on a Friday, work out what we're going to eat for the next week. That then changes what we buy on a Saturday. It means we waste less food, we spend less money, and we know that we're getting the foods that we need to get for whatever we want. I mean, it sounds like you're almost kind of restricting yourself, but I really don't think it is. Like, because of that, we are now varying our food a lot more. As you say, you fall into habits. So we would basically cycle through the same 7 meals every evening. Just cycle through them because it's habit, and it's just, oh, we buy this, we buy this, we buy this. These are the meals we make. And if you plan and if you think ahead, you can think, right, I need this many calories. That looks like this many meals. I need this, this, and this. And just work out what you're going to do. If you try to wing it, you might do well if you're lucky or if you're really good at this, but most people need to put a little bit of planning in place. So it's just a case of thinking ahead before you go food shopping and work out what it is that you need, what you need to buy to make that, and then it just gets so much easier.
I think that also plays into... So last week on the podcast I interviewed Devon Sisson, and we talked a lot about our relationship with food and the food environment. And for me, this is generally not a problem because I'm a Neanderthal when it comes to my food. I walk into the supermarket, I tend to buy foods that I kind of like and are going to serve a purpose. Secondary is the enjoyment part of the meal. So if my girlfriend served me chicken, broccoli and rice, I'm not actually going to be that bothered. I'll sit down and eat it because it's serving a purpose for me. Could that meal have been tastier and better and more enjoyable? 100%. But because my primary reason behind eating is functional outcome from eating that meal, I'm not that bothered by it. But there'll be some people that would sit down and get quite annoyed at that meal because it's very bland, they've had it before. And again, it's about you standing back and saying, right, this is how I want to engage with my food, and I need to take the appropriate steps to plan to do that. So my system that I had before going to Greece was never a problem because of how I like to eat. But I just found that I could have more enjoyment by going through that process and having a little bit more variety.
I mean, it comes down really to how much of your daily enjoyment comes from the food that you eat. Like, people I think get really hung up on, oh, my food, every meal needs to be delicious, otherwise you're eating a restrictive diet and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you might just get enjoyment from other parts of your life and you just don't want to think about it all that much. Like, if you could eat a really simple, basic-ass meal and go, yeah, that was pretty good, and then go and do something fun, I don't think you're getting less out of your day than someone that spends more time cooking and then doesn't get to do that thing for as long, if that makes sense.
100%. Because it's like, I wake up in the morning, I grab a hot drink, and I want to get on with my day. I don't even want to eat. The first thing I think about is how long can I not eat for when I get up, which is weird for someone that's kind of into health and performance. So if I can get away with not eating until 10 o'clock in the morning, I'll do it because it means I can get on with shit. I can do work. I can just do other things because eating, like I've been around for 30 years. I've eaten quite a lot of food. I'm not overly bothered by it. I'm overly bothered about doing other cool stuff in my lifestyle, like, working. I love my job, taking the dog for a walk, playing sport, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a great point, Tom, in that, we're all different. We've all got to find that kind of sweet spot, and there's no right or wrong answer. Like, for example, Lizzie really loves food, she loves getting in the kitchen, she loves cooking, she loves spending time and all that kind of stuff, and she'll happily spend an hour preparing and cooking a meal, whereas if it was down to me, man, I'd be in there 10 minutes. But it makes her happy, and my approach makes me happy. Yeah,
exactly. As you said, there's absolutely no right or wrong. And I don't know, I think maybe with the whole chicken, rice and broccoli 6 times a day bodybuilder thing, and then there was the big if it fits your macros clap back to that, where everybody started eating really fancy meals, and now Instagram's kicked off and everyone posts really elaborate food on Instagram. It seems almost like that's what you should do.
Yeah.
Like, to lead a balanced, healthy and happy life, you need to be eating these incredible looking meals. And I mean, most of my meals look really boring. And that's not to say that if I go out for a meal, I'm not a bit of a foodie and I don't enjoy trying new stuff and I don't really enjoy food. It's just, there are other things I can do with my time that I enjoy more. So you can just eat simply. And coming back to the question, I just think if planning the food that you're going to eat, or at least roughly having some sort of framework that you can work to, is a way that you can make sure that any food that you do eat is just going to fit your needs. So it doesn't have to be fancy, it doesn't have to be elaborate. Just think, right, I need this, this and this. That'll suit my needs. Cool. I can crack on being a strength and conditioning coach and training for triathlon.
100%. With the Instagram thing, we've got to appreciate that some of these people that are posting all these elaborate things, that's kind of like their job. So they actually have loads of time to like. And I've seen some stuff where they've built, massive like old school ice cream vases of all these different things, and I'm like, I have not got time for that. But those people have, and like you said, I don't want people to kind of feel that that's what their nutrition needs to be. Like, I'll go into my kitchen sometimes and I will eat a yogurt and grab 2 apples, and I'll walk away from the kitchen. And I'm it. I've eaten. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, people will spend an hour in the kitchen making like protein baked snacks that they can eat through the week. If someone gave me one of those snacks, I would be incredibly grateful for it because they're really nice. I just personally wouldn't spend the time to do it. And that's not saying that it's wrong. It's just my priorities lie elsewhere, and I think a lot of other people probably feel the same, but I don't know whether the overall perception is that that's something that you should do to be one of these healthy people.
Tom, we should probably move on to the second question before we spend
we're rambling again. We're rambling again. Right, next one. Where's it gone?
Daz.
Yeah. There it is. Hi, Ben. It was great to meet you at the recent seminar in Exmouth. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Exmouth.
Yeah, Exmouth.
Listen and chat to you during the break, as well as swapping your podcasts for Radio 2 on my morning drive to work. So move over, Chris Evans. My question is around my macronutrient intake and cardio training. I've just started my diet phase as I prepared to compete in the Southwest NPA, which is the Natural Physique Association, show in October. Currently, I train an upper-lower split Monday, Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, with 1 hill sprint and 3 cardio sessions of about 30 minutes, spread over 7 days. My current macronutrient split is 50 grams of carbs, 35 grams of protein and 7 grams of fat per meal 5 times throughout the day. The advice I'm after is how best to split one of these meals around my cardio training, which is done about 4 p.m. Do I split half of the nutrients pre and post, just post and start slightly fasted? Do I shift around the total values to suit my cardio session, or do nothing at all? My cardio sessions include core work with the Concept 2 rower, which I find works best for me. Any help and advice would be awesome. Please continue with the no-holds-barred approach to being awesome, food and fitness. Always appreciated. Kind regards, Daz.
Well, Daz, firstly, good luck in your show. You're doing something I would never do, so high five. Getting up in the little trunks and giving it a flex. So, good luck with that. Firstly, actually, I want to pick up on Daz's training. That I like his kind of training split, and I like the fact that it doesn't sound too hardcore. Don't get me wrong, there's quite a bit of training in there, but with the right approach, that's very doable. And the reason why I say this is I see a lot of bodybuilding pre-show routines kind of being literally every day, 2 days, 2 sessions in a day, weights in the evening, cardio in the morning. And for me, you shouldn't be going that extreme, because I just believe it leads to burnout quicker. So the 4 weight sessions, the 3 cardio sessions and a hill sprint, that looks pretty decent to me. Anyway, we obviously know that calorie balance is the most important thing for you to get shredded. And the second to that is timing of meals is going to be very important for you to get the most out of your workout. And I think when people are dieting, they ignore this a little bit too much, especially females. Females get into this mindset of, okay, I'll start training and hopefully if I'm hungry, I'll burn more fat because there's less food kicking around and it won't get burned. If anything, you want to be fueling your training sessions so you can work hard. Like when I go into a gym and train with weights, I usually train for about an hour and a half. It's quite a long session. I go for a swim afterwards. I usually eat about an hour and a half before training, because I'll eat roughly every 4 hours anyway. So if I train for like 2 hours and eat an hour and a half before, and that half an hour coming out of the gym, that is a 4 hour time window anyway. So I was going to eat. If I left that too long and I ate like 2.5 hours or 3 hours before training, I'm probably going to burn out halfway through my training quicker because there's just less food floating around. So I like getting meals fairly close to training without any digestive disruption, because I want to push myself really hard. And the reality is, if you can push yourself hard, let's say for every half an hour you train, you might be burning an extra 80, 120, 140 calories per half an hour of training because you have the ability to actually engage everything and work hard. So this is where the kind of fasted cardio conversation, can have its fire reignited, in that if it works for you and you train with intensity and get the outcome that you want, then brilliant. But if you can't go into the gym and train with purpose and intensity because you've got no food in you, then you need to eat beforehand. Whether it's a snack or whether it's you move your cardio training time, either way, performance is key. And maintenance of performance on a diet is super important because the body is going to be in a suboptimal state anyway. So the more optimal a state we can put it in, bonza. So that would kind of be my opinion. You asked about splitting your meals. Now, if I split your meal and you now get 17.5 grams of protein before and after, that's going to be suboptimal because we haven't got a good bolus protein feeding. So ideally, I would want you probably to have a meal like 2 hours before your cardio and then eat like half an hour afterwards, for example, or an hour afterwards. And that kind of seems logical and easy to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you've more or less said what I was going to say. Like, really, fat loss isn't about acute fat oxidation. So, as you say, it doesn't matter whether or not you're fasted before you go into the session. What matters is the performance within that session and then the calorie balance over a prolonged period of time. So, if fueling that session well causes you to burn slightly more calories, causes you to perform slightly better, then the outcome is going to be better even though you weren't fasted for the session. I mean, I've ran the numbers and this guy's on just over 2,000 calories a day, so I don't know how big he is, but that seems pretty low.
Yeah.
It seems pretty low for I worked it out as well because I did a bit of stalking and found out when that show is, but it's 14 weeks away today. So it seems like you're going pretty hard out the gate, which isn't necessarily a problem, but it's something that I would just be mindful of. And I would certainly think if you're on a relatively low calorie intake, then fueling that session becomes even more important. So it is going to be a case that I would probably say 2 hours max before your session, get a meal in, then get a meal in when you leave. I mean, I train in a almost kind of sort of similar way in that I do my weight training in the morning, then I'll go back to the gym in the evening and do some cardio. And that's all I do. And I do more cardio than you. But it is just a case of getting some food in around 2 hours before you train, finish, get a shower, then get another meal in, and don't really think too much more about it.
Done. Right, Thomas, let's do the last question because I am going to wrap that up quite quickly.
Cool. Okay, and best of luck, Daz, in your show.
Yes.
Okay, so
Daz, send us a picture, actually. When you compete, tag us in it, send us a picture. Like, we'd love to see, like, how you did. And ultimately, just remember, you're competing ultimately for yourself.
Exactly. Cool. Hi, Ben and the team. Just like to say, I've only just in the last few months discovered the podcasts, but the information, content and honesty is second to none, and I'm thoroughly enjoying catching up on previous episodes. I have a question in relation to the follow.
Tom, wrong question, mate.
Wrong question. Ignore that. Third podcast, first gaff. I'll take that. Hi, Ben. I wanted to reach out to you following listening to your podcast on environmental estrogens. Long story short, I've had no natural cycles post coming off the depot injection 3 years ago. I've been through the whole process of going for my GP, then a gynecologist, and having all the relevant tests and investigations before being sent to a fertility clinic. I've been told I've got hypothalamic amenorrhea. I've got hypothalamic amenorrhea and have been waiting over 6 months for an appointment with the consultants to best find out what the treatment is. I'm getting really impatient as we know the issue and they are in no rush to treat me, but insist on counselling, etc. before even telling me the form of treatment. Everything else is normal, both with myself and my partner. I have follicles on my ovaries, but I have such low levels of luteinizing hormone at 0.1, and my pituitary gland has basically gone to sleep. I've cut soya on recommendation and lost 10 kilograms since Christmas trying to kickstart my body. I've tried acupuncture and yoga, which helps to de-stress, but it hasn't done anything yet to work. I lost a lot of weight 8 years ago while still on contraceptives. I was on it for 10 years. They think it's a culmination of the depot injection and high stress levels through work and personal life, along with dramatic weight loss and lifestyle change. I'm at a lost end and don't know what to do next. I've had all the tests and nothing really stands out other than the low luteinizing hormone. Any suggestions or things you can do to advise? We're desperate to have a family and it's such a strain on life. They say stress is the cause, but yet still no real help from the NHS, just hoop jumping. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks, Ben, and avid follower, Erin.
So there's quite a few things to pick up on here, and I'm going to go over it in quite a quick and direct way. Now, I'm no doctor, I'm no hormone expert, I'm not the NHS, but I've worked with a lot of people in your situation, and I've worked with a lot of couples that have not been able to get pregnant in the past, and I've always taken the exact same approach. Now, for me, it still looks like you are looking for an answer that you're going to get from a test. So a doctor's going to do a test, they're going to go, wow, this is happening, and here's some medication, or here's a procedure or something. And for me, the solution is staring you in the face in that I don't believe your lifestyle is supporting the overall health of your body. Now, the NHS have clearly said that there is a stress component here. And the NHS, in my eyes, and in my experience having family members that work in the NHS, and for having coached for a long period of time, the NHS is not well enough equipped to solve your problem fully. And if they are, it's going to take quite a long time for you to get referred to the various different people, the various different departments to get the outcome that you want. And this is where I would advise a client in any situation like this to just go private, because the amount of time it's going to take you to get that advice is going to be long. Now, for me, it still doesn't feel like you understand the baseline fundamentals of nutrition enough. And I'm only basing this on your comment, I cut out soya and I lost 10 kilograms since Christmas trying to kickstart my body. It sounds like there that you're not fully appreciating the overall role of the diet, the constituents of a diet, nourishing your body, eating the right amount of calories for the amount of energy that your body burns every day. And then on top of that, there's a stress component. And for me, the stress component is the key thing here. Every couple that I've worked with, there's been a stress component. And I'm just going to kind of wind back in time and think about the human body's most fundamental needs. Our first human fundamental need is safety and security. It's the thing that the body looks for. That's why if you lost your home and you lost everything, the first thing you would do as a homeless person is go and find shelter. Someone as warm and out of the wind and rain and everything as possible, because we need to feel safe. Even if it's in a doorway of an old nightclub, it doesn't matter. It's a sense of security. So if you extrapolate this and the body is in a constant state of fighting its environment, there's stress coming from various angles, whether that's mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, that all is going to put the body into a unsafe situation to some degree. And I can't quantify this. I can't say that this amount of stress is going to put your adrenal glands under X amount of stress. It doesn't work like that. We're just looking at the fact that if the body's constantly going, this is a problem in my life. I feel emotional. I feel like I've got anxiety. Is the body going to be in a place where it wants to bring a new child into the world? I am going to put my kind of coaching experience on the line and say, actually, perhaps your body is sending physiological signals to the rest of your body to say, do you know what, now is not a good time to start a family, because this person is not in a good place themselves. Either way, stress affects the hormonal system in quite a profound way. This is why sleep is mega important, because it has a lot of input on the hormonal system. It helps us repair and re-regulate. So actually, I think your solution is potentially in counselling or some kind of mindset work. I don't know the background of your personal life and your work life. It might mean that you have to go and do something like CBT or some form of counselling to actually kind of go through some of the stuff that happened in the past that is quite painful and traumatic. Or it might be that actually you just have a slightly disordered way at looking at some of the situations in your world. For example, work environment. Work can be very stressful for some people, and the same work environment can be completely non-stressful to someone else, purely by how they look at it and how they deal with that stress. So either way, I think my solution is that you do need to go and find a new way to conceptualize some of the things that you're feeling, some of the anxieties that you have. You know, you've tried acupuncture, you've tried yoga. These are some of the things that can, yes, help relieve stress, but you're relying on someone else to help guide that stress relieving process. You can't just lie down on an acupuncture couch, have needles put in you and hope that that stress just disappears. It doesn't work like that because the mind is still controlling the majority of your stress input. So this is where you actually have to go and do the work. And whether you go and work with a CBT practitioner, you go and work with someone like Stephen Aish, who I've referred plenty of clients to, Heather Wynn, who I'm a fan of, she's been on the podcast before. You know, there's loads of people that work on mindset. I genuinely believe this is I'm not going to say it's going to fix the problem. I'm going to say it's going to get you a lot closer to where you want to be. Because as a coach, looking at the whole of what's going on, for me, that's the thing that's screaming at me in the face.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had a look, despite the fact that I couldn't say it properly. I had a brief look around hypothalamic amenorrhea this morning, and it seems like it is, like functional hypothalamic amenorrhea is often caused by stress, weight loss, and or excessive exercise. So, depending on the manner by which you went around losing 10 kilos, that could potentially be playing into it. I don't know whether this was an issue before you lost that weight or not. But as you said, Ben, like the NHS is absolutely phenomenal, and the people that work for it are amazing. I don't know how they do their work, but they're not fully equipped to deal with everything, whether that's due to funding or whatever. It's a separate topic. But then, if the NHS aren't necessarily able to help you, then going private really is the only way to do it. And as you said about stress, CBT is fantastic. Anything that's kind of... The thing I always tell people about stress is that stress, yes, it is down to the way you react to things in life, and there are ways that you can work around stress by, say, journaling or meditating or anything like that. They're all really effective, but the main way to deal with stress is to find out what the causes of those stress are and face them and deal with them. And that's something that a CBT practitioner will be able to help you with, because they can help you to structure some sort of approach whereby you can do that in a way that doesn't totally override everything that you've already done, that doesn't completely overhaul your entire life. It's a step-by-step process. So that's something I'd recommend. Even if you then do go forward with the planned stuff that the NHS has got and they've got in mind anyway, like if they've recommended counselling, that's something that I would probably take on board. That's kind of all I can really input on this one.
Yeah, I genuinely hope that our advice has fallen in the right way, Erin. All I'm going to say is, if you were my client, your mindset, your stress coping mechanisms would be the one thing that I'm going to primarily explore. Secondary is your nutrition, but sleep, stress is key here. So, I think it's time to work on you and how you face the world, and I genuinely think good things will happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of all you can do until these tests and other sort of medical exploration gets done anyway. So rather than looking for more alternative tests or anything like that, I would say just work with the things that you can work with, and then if the NHS have appointments and stuff waiting for you, then while you're waiting, there's practical things that you can do in the meantime, and that's kind of where that comes in.
Just before I wrap up, because we mentioned our nutrition course at the beginning of this podcast, and in the fitness industry with nutrition, there's a massive grey area between these lines of what practitioners can and can't do. And I fully appreciate where those lines cross. Like, there's things that doctors need to do. There's things that certain specialists need to do, and it's outside of our remit. But if you look at the problem that, Erin has just presented to us, and me as a practitioner, I'm not going to stand here as a practitioner and say, Erin, it sounds like you've got a medical problem, go and see a doctor. The thing is, I am a holistic coach in that I will look at someone's health and their lifestyle, and I will try and find where potential problems lie as a root cause problem. Like Tom's just mentioned, stress. Look at the root cause, deal with the problem. So while I might not be standing here saying I can solve and cure hypothalamic amenorrhea, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, do you know what? There's a massive stress component here. There's a diet component. There's an overtraining component. There's plenty of components. I believe that if we do that, some good things might happen. I'm not promising anything, but I think some good things are happening. Why? Because we just focus on the human as a whole. We focus on where they're at, what they're not doing, what's not being done right, and the chances are good things happen. When you bring the body into physiological balance as a result of affecting the things that play into certain physiological actions, then again we get better regulation. It's just like sleep. If you sleep 5 hours a night, and me as a coach says I want you to sleep 7 hours a night, and you start doing that, you'll get better physiological regulation. And I haven't gone in and tried to solve insomnia or cure anything. I've just said, hey, we've got a sleep problem here. Let's look at the sleep problem. So this is where I think there's a huge power in our hands as coaches. And I'm not online saying I can cure this and I can cure that, but I think I'm great at looking at problems with people and putting solutions in place that do lead to better outcomes, whether they are medical or not. And I think for any of the personal trainers that are listening to this, or coaches, like, don't feel afraid to handle situations that come to you. Don't promise that you're going to cure a situation or do anything radical, but do say, hey, do you know what? Let's work together. Let's look at your nutrition, your sleep, your training, and let's just see if some cool things happen. That's why when someone comes to me, I will never really focus on a specific problem. I'll focus on the whole body, and hopefully we just get some better outcomes from the specific problem. And the chances are, when you attack everything else from a global perspective, the root cause of what feeds into that specific problem then rears its head, because there's less variables that can feed into it. At the moment with Erin's problem, there's actually quite a few variables that can feed into it, because there's actually quite a bit going on. So until you look at the whole body, for me, you can't get specific. And I just don't want coaches to feel that, oh my God, this is a medical problem. We're not training people to be doctors. We're not training people to do funky things. We are training people to look at the whole body and make the human body a better functioning machine.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is as well, like, if someone does have a specific... Bless you. If someone does present with an issue, in the likes of what Erin's come with, Erin has spoken to medical professionals already. So if you're coaching someone and they present you with a specific problem that you don't feel equipped to deal with, it's not a case that referring them out is the end of the relationship you have with them. Like, it's okay to work with someone who has X problem, and if you're not comfortable with it, just say, I don't know what this is. Let's work with your doctor, and the two of us can help you together. Because if you were to say to someone, right, I'm not equipped to help with that, I'm afraid I just can't work with you, go and see your doctor, is that person then going to then stop exercising? Are they then going to still be as hot on their diet as they were, or are they just going to go down the medical route? And it's a multidisciplinary team approach. Like, not every professional can do everything, and as you say, we shouldn't be afraid to help people, as long as you say, you know the extent of your remit and you know the extent of your expertise.
This is why I love teaching what I teach, because I think actually sorting out someone's diet, sleep, training, hydration affects so much, and that's why I've tried to position myself in the way that I have, that you just need to get some really key things right and amazing stuff happens. Anyway, Our nutrition course is launching in August. Please do check it out, Body Type Nutrition Foundation Academy. Otherwise, me and Tom will be back on the show very soon. When that is, I'm not sure. We're not that organised yet.
No.
Erin, Daz, Joe, thank you for emailing into the show. It's very appreciated. If you would like to pose a question on the podcast, please email bencoomber@gmail.com with the subject line podcast, and we will throw your question into the mix. Please make sure it hasn't been asked before on the show, so we keep getting a diversity of questions on the show. Last little announcement from me. We have expanded our trade and affiliate offering as part of Awesome Supplements. So if you like Awesome Supplements and what we're doing, you can have the supplements in your gym or your shop. You can recommend them online through our affiliate program. And we promise the vegan protein is coming very soon when we sort out some issues that keep rearing its head. We're trying to get it to taste perfect, and when we scale up the batching, it's not quite working out as the sampling process. So I'm not happy to release it until it's absolutely perfect. But anyway, enough of that. Tom, thank you for joining me on the show and your input, which was
always
fantastic as ever. We will see you on next week's show. In the meantime, everyone, stay awesome. Hey everyone, Vancouver Radio, episode number 265.